Super Bowl or bust, and this is the teams that are right below the elite teams. Okay, so I'm talking about four teams in particular, and we'll talk about their games. And if you could see this team not winning the Super Bowl, but getting to the Super Bowl. Okay, so multiple playoff victories. The first one, we saw them last night, Monday Night Football. They had a ho hum game against the Bears, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings last night win 30-12 against the Chicago Bears and are 12-2 right now. If they win out, I believe they would be the number one seed in the NFC. So there's a chance. But do you see a scenario, or can you see it in your mind, where the Minnesota Vikings are in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I can. I mean, their two biggest threats are, their two biggest threats are going to be Philly and the Lions. Like those
Yeah.
are the two biggest threats. Green Bay, good, but not to the caliber of the other three teams there. So yeah, especially if they get home field advantage, I could see them. They've already taken down taken the Lions down to the wire once, right? And that was a close game. It was a great game, absolutely stellar game. And then their only other loss was against the Rams, who are a good team, who we say are going to make the playoffs. And that was on a short week. I think this team is outstanding, and I think Addison was right. People need to start talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, well, that would be my thing with the Vikings, is how scary their wide receiver duo is, their
And
defense
the
right now.
connection that Sam Darnold has with both Jefferson and Addison.
Yeah. Their total defense right now is 13th in the league. And again, we just said how impressive it was that the Broncos have only allowed 24 touchdowns this year. The Vikings have only allowed 27 touchdowns in the league. So they've allowed the third least amount of touchdowns
Yeah,
for
I think
any of the offensive
I
they've
think the
played this
Vikings
year.
people are overlooking, and I think I'm going to start paying attention to them to go to the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but also you have to really, to put that into perspective, it's also really impressive to be the team allowing the third least amount of touchdowns, especially when you've played, juggernauts like the Rams, like the Lions, like the Packers, like all these teams, like the Texans, all these offensive teams that are going to be legit contenders, maybe outside of the Texans, in the playoffs. So I've been you know me, I've been on the Vikings since the beginning, and I said that my only question mark was Sam Darnold. He's passed the test with flying colors, even in a bad game. Like, his bad game is most quarterbacks like game where you're just like, oh, he just had an off night. Like, Sam Darnold's bad game was 24 for 40, 231, one touchdown, one interception. That's not like, a Jameis Winston 3 interception game. That's
Right.
a bad game, but not something where you're like concerned for him. And he's done that basically all season. So yeah,
Good points.
I legitimately could see this Vikings team in the Super Bowl. Let's move
Could you
right.
see him winning it?
Well, that depends. I could see them beating. I could see them beating the Ravens.
So
I
they
don't. I
so
don't know
the
if I
answer is
could see.
yes. You could see him winning it.
Yeah, I could see them winning it. I don't know if I would pick them against the Bills or the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't know. But let's move right next door to their neighbor in the NFC North casino, and that is the Green Bay Packers. 10-4, they win 30-13 on Sunday Night Football against the now 8-6 Seahawks. Do you see this Packers team being a legit Super Bowl contender?
No, I think they're still just behind it. I think they could win one, maybe two. I mean, hell, they could make the conference championship, but I don't see them making the Super Bowl, let alone winning it. So that's out of. But I don't see them making the Super Bowl. No,
Uh,
I
uh,
think I did, but they're young. They're a young team, and in they're good in all aspects of the game. That money is going to get paid, but for a lot of those players, a lot of players in the NFL outside of like the main staples, you have your quarterback, your running backs, your receivers, stuff like that. Um, Players don't get paid an exorbitant amount of money. So I think that they're going to be able to keep a lot of these players, especially if they continue to progress. And I think they're going to. So I would say 2 more years and then watch out.
I honestly, the question marks I had for this Packers team have actually kind of been answered since week 12 because they destroyed the Niners, they destroyed the Dolphins,
Bad
they
team.
they
Bad team.
lost by 3 points on a short week to Detroit, and
Good
then
game.
on Sunday Night Football they destroyed the Seahawks. So their last 3 games, they play the Vikings once. If all of a sudden the
Yeah, but
Packers
they
beat
still
the
lost to the
Vikings.
Lions with the Lions not having a lot on their defense. And look what happened with a team that is really good with the Bills. What do? They went in there and they put up points. That's what the Packers needed to do that day. They needed to go in there and win that game and put up some massive numbers. I mean, they did score a lot, but we needed more to get that W. So that's where I'm at. They are good. I know they want to play the Bills to get into the Super Bowl, but I don't think that they're good enough to beat the Lions. I don't think they're good enough to beat the Vikings um, or the Eagles. So
Well, my criteria is always, do you have a top
fif-
12 defense in the
yeah,
league, 12 to 15-ish defense? You have an average defense, and they have the 10th overall total defense in the league. Their passing
yeah, and
defense,
it's a young defense, and that's what I'm saying. Give them a couple more years.
yeah, their passing defense is 15th in the league, and their rushing defense is up, if I can find it right here. The Packers rushing defense is ninth. So they have a good enough defense. I really like Josh Jacobs. I am starting to really like end of the season Jordan Love, which is what got him the giant contract in the offseason, because he kind of just turns it on at the end of the season. And obviously we saw last year where they just annihilated the Cowboys in the playoffs. So again, this was a team that was 3 points away last year from going to the Super Bowl instead of the 49ers. So it's not like this team hasn't been close or doesn't have the resources or didn't get better this offseason. So the only thing I wanted to see was them win against a good team. And not only did they win against a good team, they blew out a good team who at that point was the number 1 seed in the NFC West. So yeah, I think that, and again, I think that was the best game they played all season, and they played some pretty good games. So after this weekend, Casino, I think I'm on the Packers bandwagon. I think they are a team that everybody's focused on the Lions, and then there's people, talk like being like, why aren't people talking about the Vikings? Like we are. Like the Packers are kind of just right there. They have 2 more losses than either of those teams, but again, they took both of them to the wire and they play the Vikings again. So I think the Packers are legit. I could see them in the Super Bowl. I really could. Uh, Now, our last one on the Super Bowl or bus train, Casino, the Washington Commanders. They had a rough game this week. They win 20-19 on a failed 2-point attempt by the New Orleans Saints. 9-5 Washington Commanders. Super Bowl? No,
No, no.
I don't think
But
so.
hey, but again, it was nobody had them even making the playoffs except for me. So making the playoffs, that's good for them. You got a foundation now. You got your quarterback. You know what you have. Now work around that. Fix it. Bring in some players, make that team better. So
Yeah. I don't think so either. I don't think they're a legit Super Bowl contender, but I will say the turnaround that defense made from the first half of the season to now the second half has been really impressive in total
that's fair,
defense.
but
They're now 11th in the league, and they've still allowed 38 touchdowns.
that's
So
fair. But you still look at that team, and then you can't tell me you don't think something's off.
yeah. Well, now the defense has stepped up and the offense has kind of reverted back to, you know, what we've always said about Cliff Kingsbury and how he just kind of falls off during the end of the season. And this is proof that, they're scoring 19 points against a banged up New Orleans Saints team that's 5-9. Where, like you said in the TikTok we recorded about this game, where Kamara was out for most of this game. It was Spencer Rattler, not Derek Carr, and they were still kind of neck and neck with the Commanders for most of the game, hanging around, and then we're a 2-point conversion away at the end of the game from winning.
And they
So
should have, because Rattler just didn't see the wide open guy.
yeah. So yeah, I don't think the Commanders are contenders, but I wouldn't be shocked if, they maybe won one or two in the playoffs, surprise some people.